Every game starts with potential. Whether it be a smaller indie game having the love poured into it for the first time, to the giant blockbuster worked on by thousands and thousands of people, each game starts with a potential for its success. It's a matter of whether or not the game can ever hit that potential, however, and its ability to take flight in the gaming world. Sometimes the developers can be the Wright brothers, taking gaming to new heights with innovation that the world hasn't seen before. Sometimes they're amateur pilots, delivering a bit of a rocky experience, but it's still enjoyable nonetheless. And sometimes the game ends up being the Hindenburg, where the game is on the level of some of the worst aviation disasters in history. Again, I want to stress, the potential was there. The game could have been fantastic, but bad choices along the way made it so that that potential was never realized. And sadly, it may have not been the game's fault in the end. And thus we come to Rodea the Sky Soldier. Let's get this out of the way right now. The $50 game on the Wii U digital store, $60 for a physical copy, is the Hindenburg of the Wii U lineup. Spoilers, this game is not only not good, it's literally one of the worst I've played since I've started covering games on this channel. It's on the level of Alone in the Dark Illumination. And even worse, I'd rather have played Sonic Boom again. Yes, that game. And the sad part about it is, there is still a version of the game that I could possibly recommend. How is that possible, you may ask? Well, stick around, and I'll explain exactly what I'm talking about. Now, one final note before I begin. Unlike most of the games that I use my review system on, I did not complete Rodea the Sky Soldier. I will allude to exactly why that is later on in the review, but you guys should know that I didn't get the story payoff in the end. This will not be my typical review, because, well, this is an atypical situation that Rodea has been put in. Let's start with the story. Rodea is a robot and a bodyguard to Princess Cecilia. They're caught in a bit of a pickle, attempting to protect the land of Guardia from the Emperor of Naga and his forces. It looks like the Emperor and his robotic-like beasts are coming to take over the country. You know, typical supervillain stuff. Luckily, the fabled Key of Time may be the key to winning the war, or it may seal the fate of both Rodea and Cecilia in the end. Well, Cecilia breaks the key into two, gives part of it to Rodea, and then teleports him away, because she's got magic, obviously. This unfortunately takes its toll on Rodea, as he's broken in the process, and ends up sleeping under the sand. Now we fast forward 1,000 years, and Rodea finds himself repaired thanks to the efforts of a spunky mechanic named Ion, and finds that the world has changed a bit. Rodea, despite being a robot, seemingly has memories that he can't access, and the story plays out as the Naga Empire is now back, and it's up to the two to protect the world from the new threat that plays out. Despite being out of his element, Rodea must adjust to this new world and figure out exactly who he is and what role he plays in the saga of the Nagas. The story that's set up here is quite interesting. It sets up themes of love, promises, friendship, and what it means to be human. Almost what you'd expect out of a story that sets itself up like this. But there's nothing too different here, as while the combination of Rodea and Ion is cute on the surface, it can start to wear on you rather quickly, especially with the in-game dialogue. There's probably a reason that this option menu exists. But don't get me wrong, the characters are likable, and you want to know about Rodea's mysterious past and what has changed over 1,000 years. But it's not enough to really overlook the other problems that the game has. It's nothing too special, and even if it could be a tale that really stands out in the end of its conclusion, I never found myself wanting to power through it in order to see it. You know what? Normally I'd go and talk about the aesthetic and the characters and whatnot, but let's not beat around the bush. Let's get straight to the core of the game, the gameplay. The game is a mixture of the adventure genre and aerial combat. Each stage has you trying to complete an objective, whether it be to get to the end of the stage or collect certain items that are needed for your goal. Of course, there are enemies in your path, and it sets up the aerial battles of the game. The game has a lot of collectibles and content in it, so if you're looking for gameplay length, Rodea seems to hit home in terms of that. Now, the variety does come into question, as while the stages do play out a bit differently at times, they don't necessarily feel that different in the long run. There's another problem that hurts that level portion, however, but more on that later. Rodea is a sky soldier, hence the title of the game, and thus most of his actions and abilities are in the air. He can fly for periods of time based on this meter that's in the middle here. You aim the reticle at a certain target after jumping into the air, and propel forward slowly towards your target. Now you can speed forward using your attack button, but note the meter here. Once this meter is up, Rodea will lose power and he'll go crashing into the ground. There are items in the world that can give temporary increases if you run into problems, and defeating enemies will give you some energy back while in the air. And your meter is reset every time you land on a surface. You can lock onto enemies and certain items in order to help with your abilities as well. So the task is simple: stay in the air, reset when necessary, and enjoy the idea of flying through the air like a bird. Now you may ask what kind of bird, and I'm going to say penguin. Yes, I know. I'll get to it. In terms of flying, it feels slow to begin with. Sure, you have the speed options with the attack, but you have to be careful with how you use it, as using too much of it will have you fall to your doom. The game's default pace seems slow, especially in the early going, as you find yourself wishing for something to happen. The game introduces gears as a secondary option to your aerial attacks, and gives you things like a gun, which fires very slowly as well. It only really gets useful when you upgrade it, and even then, it feels so disconnected from the main game that I think it'd be better without it. Now you can collect parts and gears to upgrade Rodea and make him stronger, but in the end you are relying on his core abilities to come through. The game feels like a weird aerial version of Sonic the Hedgehog. It's probably in the nature of dashing from enemy to enemy and from landmass to landmass. And given Sonic's latest games, that's not a good thing to be compared to. The enemy variety isn't that great either, as it basically comes down to different attack patterns and when to attack. You're dashing at them the same way you dash at everyone else, but they have spikes or shields that go up for periods of times that will prevent you from mashing buttons. It doesn't help that some enemies have homing missiles that you can't see coming at you, but it has one of the most annoying sound indicators while doing it. There are boss fights that definitely help the game at times, having more interesting battles in the end, but it doesn't do enough to make you wonder where the game's factor is. In fact, the way the game plays, it feels like it's being held back. Hell, you may be wondering if I'm holding back on this review. Like I'm holding something back from you to make a point. And you're right. You're probably thinking to yourself this: okay, Dryness is pointing out some flaws and all, but one of the worst games he's ever covered? Why didn't he finish it? I must be missing something. And up to this point, the game would be mediocre, but passable in several ways. I mean though, worse than Sonic Boom in terms of playability? But then we get to what truly drags this game into the depths of gaming hell. Of course, it's a combination of things, of course, but it all starts with one simple core flaw that overshadows everything else the game could possibly do. And for the Wii U version of the game, it's its controls. You see, the game's aerial combat and gameplay is so reliant on the controls to make it fun. Very much like Sonic the Hedgehog games, when the pace of this game feels smooth and fast, the game can seemingly be fun. If you're able to keep up the pace in combat, there's something fun about dashing from enemy to enemy, knocking into them one by one while planning out your next move. In fact, there's something thrilling about it, like an ace fighter pilot. The core game design works in this case, in terms of the actual gameplay. But the controls are what stops you from truly enjoying the game. When you take flight, you spin in the air and aim at your next target. This aim is done with the control stick, and it's where the game literally falls apart. Attempting to target where you want to go with any precise accuracy is not only a challenge, it's damn near impossible. It may take multiple attempts to precisely go where you want, and if you are not targeting an enemy, there's no lock-on system in several cases. It's even worse in groups of enemies, where a lot of camera work is needed to go back and forth between them, as Rodea can't keep up with how fast the player wants to go. It's slow, it's degrading, and frankly, it's boring. The game shows flashes of fun, however, especially when set up in a straight line of enemies and collectibles, almost like the game is able to work in a 2D plane better than anything else with this control scheme. But once the third dimension is introduced, things fall apart. You literally feel like you are playing with a squid instead of a controller, unable to grasp onto it, and it's slipping all over the place. This is further complicated by one of the worst cameras I've experienced since critically covering games. This camera will fight you more than Ronda Rousey, and like with the UFC champion, you're going to win as many fights with the camera as her opponents do with her. The camera turns slowly as you painstakingly wait for it to get into the right position, and that's if you're able to move the camera with the control stick in the way you want. Sometimes the camera ends up in some of the worst angles that you could possibly imagine, just Just look at this. Look at this. How is this a good angle? With the combination of the aforementioned controls and this camera, you are at the game's mercy. You feel like you have absolutely no control of what's going to happen and have to systematically take steps to get to your goal in a slow and methodical fashion. In a game that requires speed and energy to get the enjoyment out of it. You see the problem here? And you know what the sad part about this is? You know what really ends up being the worst part about all the game has to offer? There was a control scheme that could have brought out its potential, and was the original control scheme the game had, and it's missing in the Wii U version. Wait, there's more than one version of this game? Oh yeah, of course. There's a 3DS version, which in my estimation has the same problems as this one. But there's one last one. There's a Wii version of the game. And here is where the crux of the problem is, and why this game has made me more angry than most of the bad games I played this year. Yes, even angrier than Alone in the Dark Illumination, even angrier than Sonic Boom last year. That angry. See, the game originally was completed in 2010. Now you may be saying to yourself, wait, how is that possible? The Wii U came out in 2012. And you're right, the game was originally a Wii game. But for some reason, for some dumb-ass reason, the publishers NIS America decided to delay the game to the Wii U and 3DS. And here's where the problems start. You see, it makes sense on the Wii. See that reticule? Imagine if you are using the Wii remote and are pointing at the screen. Now the implementation makes sense, as you're able to snap the remote to where on screen you need it precisely. It doesn't solve the camera issues, that's for sure, but with the control scheme the remote and the nunchuck had, it's a lot more conductive than the Wii U gamepad or Pro Controller ever could be. It keeps up the pace because of that, and could make a game that would be a solid experience. It was a good design in mind for the base controls, really taking advantage of what the Wii experience had to offer. But hold on, what's stopping me from using the Wii remote and nunchuck with the Wii U version? Surely that's in the game, right? Why would they take it out? And here is where the most asinine and downright retarded decision of this whole process was made. See, there is no Wii remote controls here, at least in being able to use the IR controls for pointing at the screen. You heard me right. The control scheme that makes the most sense for this game is not present here. It's most likely why Yuji Naka himself indicated that people should play the Wii version. Think about that. A game that was released for the Wii U, the 3DS, and the Wii, well technically, the developers recommending the oldest system of the three. And what's the most likely cause of the missing controls, you may ask? Well, it's rumored that the game was first ported to the 3DS, and then ported to the Wii U. It would explain why the colored buttons for the Pro Controller exist on some menus, as well as some of the poor graphics the game has, which is somehow worse than the Wii version. Don't believe me? Here's a screenshot of the two side by side. Note the weird shadow effects that the game has here. Note the frame rate that the game has, struggling to keep up with the action at times on a superior system, which doesn't happen on the Wii version from what I understand and have seen. To say that Rodea is out of place compared to other games on the console would be an understatement. It's just plain ugly. Okay, so why not just get the Wii version of the game then? Why don't I just recommend that? You could still play it on the Wii U thanks to backwards compatibility, and it solves all the problems, so why not? And you could probably get it a little bit cheaper, right? That'd be way too easy and would make a lot of sense. See, the problem here is that the Wii version of the game is only available in one way, in the first run of physical editions of the Wii U version. Yes, the Wii version is only available in the physical release, and that's only in the first run of copies. Now, of course, being the person that I am, I bought the digital version of the game for the sake of ease when going to review this game. My bad for taking advantage of the system in place. After the initial run, the Wii version will not be available. It'll only be a collector's item. Yes, the superior version of the game is on a limited run. And I don't blame the development team on this one. The game was scheduled to come out in 2010 and seemed like it would have been good for the Wii. No, I put the blame on the publishers here. NIS America and Kadokawa Shoten, the Japanese publisher. Now, I want to talk to them directly here. Now look, I have no idea what is going on in the halls of both of your companies, and I have no idea who made the decision to go to the Wii U and 3DS in the end. I can't tell. Part of me wonders if there's a personal grudge somewhere against the development team here. Part of me wonders if anyone within either of your companies have actually listened to Yuji Naka and why he's recommending what should be the inferior version of the game, but is in fact the best version for gamers. Part of me wonders if the person who made this decision literally has any clue of the industry that he's a part of. But you've sentenced the game with what is a unique aspect, an interesting draw in an industry that has people doing the same thing over and over and over again. And you've sentenced it to death. Your inability to answer the criticism thrown at your games or questions that the community has about it. But the fact of the matter is this, it's not the development team that should be blamed for this one. Yeah, we can blame the shoddy port, yeah, we can blame some frame rate issues on them, but not in my eyes. I put this game's failure solely on your backs. You made the decision to doom this game with the fact that you didn't even bother to put the Wii remote controls back into the Wii U version, the superior controls in every way, into the game after making a bad decision not to publish the game on the Wii at the time. Look yourselves in the mirror and realize that you have no idea what was best for the game that you were supposed to be the champion of. Rodea the Sky Soldier for the Wii U not only strips the game of its fun, but frankly is a knockoff of its former self. There's so much wasted potential here, and frankly is one of the worst gaming experiences I've had to date since starting this channel. Which, by the way, this may be unprofessional of me, and this may be completely off the rails, but I have to say something about this in this review. This review here right by Chris Carter of Destructoid. You gave this game a 70 for the Wii U version. Really? I'm sorry, I know people can have their own experiences and each review can be unique, but God, is this review so horribly off the experience, I can't even begin to describe the number of problems with it. On my review scale, Rodea the Sky Soldier for the Wii U gets a 20. In absolutely no way should you consider buying this version of the game. I had more fun with Sonic Boom. Yes, you heard me, the controls here were so bad, and there wasn't any ridiculous shit to laugh at in terms of the gameplay, I'd rather go replay Sonic Boom. It was just that awful. The one enhancer that I will add is if the Wii version of the game releases separately for a cheaper price, then this game falls into the 70 range, meaning it would be worth a sale pickup. Yes, you see that right, the controls do 50 points of damage to this game. But frankly, I don't expect that release at all, given the history of this game. Rodea was doomed before takeoff, sadly, and I don't blame the developers. They tried, and probably made a game that was reasonable. But this was squandered by poor decision making and publishers who don't know what they are doing. Anyway, I'm gonna try to get the taste of Rodea the Sky Soldier for the Wii U out of my mouth. But if you like this review, hit that comment section and tell me what you think of it, or tell me what you think is wrong about the review. If you like this video, like and share it with a friend or two. You can always give me feedback because I'm willing to take it in and try something a little bit different. And again, if you want more content like this, you can hit that subscribe button. This is Dradix signing out, and I'm not going to be on the Hindenburg, at least not this version of the Hindenburg. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you like this content and want to see more of it, you may want to hit that subscribe button on the left hand side. If you like this video and want to see more of this content, take a look at this video on the left hand side as well. And if you've missed my last video, take a look at the right hand side. Once again, thanks for watching, and keep on gaming.